Hello everyone and welcome back to the world's best investing podcast. Today I'm going to be explaining why I believe that Hims and Duolingo are singularity scalers, a term that I use to refer to companies that are likely to get orders of magnitude bigger, so 10 times, 100 times, even more than that, if the AI revolution continues. If the AI revolution doesn't play out, I still believe that Hims and Duolingo get much bigger from here. As I announced on X last week, I've started a position in Duolingo. Duolingo now joins Hims in the next generation segment of my portfolio, which I've constructed following the mental framework that I teach in my course, which is linked to in the show's footnotes. I believe these two companies are likely to get orders of magnitude bigger over the coming decades as they grow free cash flow per share exponentially. Essentially, both are companies with no competition, extraordinary management teams, and an infinite runway, with two layers of asymmetry in the thesis that I'll be breaking down in this video. When I say they have no competition, I don't ignore the fact that there are other companies trying to do what they do. But as the Spotify case has taught us in the digital space, a marginal and initially imperceptible user experience advantage at the beginning equates into an exponential advantage in terms of adoption over the long term. So these companies end up having much larger user bases, which then make the businesses much harder to disrupt. Duolingo and Hims offer a better user experience than similar companies, which they continue to compound at an unmatched rate. And so I believe that soon their moats will be insurmountable, just very hard to break through. Both businesses come down to acquiring more subscribers and making more money per subscriber. The discussion around tariffs, policies of various sorts, and other uncontrollable factors seem to be weighing on these two stocks, but they actually have zero impact on the evolution of their fundamental value creation process, which is ultimately what drives the stock prices up. Both the Hims and Duolingo management teams have demonstrated a world-class ability to delight end consumers and ultimately acquire more of them. They've also demonstrated the ability to translate that growth in their user base into higher free cash flow per share, as you can see in the two graphs below. In the blue line, we have Hims free cash flow per share growing very fast. And then in the orange line, we have Duolingo free cash flow per share growing perhaps even faster. Going forward, my impression is that both management teams can be trusted to continue growing their subscriber bases and print more free cash flow per share. Duolingo and Hims have two layers of asymmetry. Firstly, they have plenty of upside just by continuing to grow the subscriber base and increasing revenue per subscriber. Secondly, they can accelerate that process dramatically if the AI revolution does live up to its potential. In such case, I believe that over the long term, and this could actually happen much quicker, like say in 3 to 5 years, Hims goes from a direct-to-consumer healthcare platform to an AI doctor, giving people access to much better healthcare quality at a fraction of the cost wherever they are, as long as they have a smartphone and 5G connection. Duolingo goes from being an education platform to an AI teacher with tremendous advantages over other players in the marketplace. The externalities of both events are actually infinite and promise to position both companies as operating systems for their respective industries. This can play out along a spectrum. As I was saying at the beginning of this video, I believe both Hims and Duolingo are singularity scalers, a breed of companies that are positioned to grow their earning power exponentially and at a marginal cost as the AI models out there tend to get better. These companies have proprietary databases which enable them to create AI models that others can't. The value created by these datasets is growing exponentially as AI models continue to improve, and these companies don't really have to invest any additional money for that to happen. With every linear step forward, the odds of exponential success go up for both Hims and Duolingo. Every time Hims deploys a new vertical, they get new data that enables them to understand how to best treat a condition for individuals with a broad range of characteristics. Every time Duolingo launches a new course, they gather similar signals but on the education side of things. Having more and better data enables them to stay ahead of the competition in a world in which AI doesn't really go through the roof. And if it does, this data advantage gives them the option of training an AI that others can't, which can then go on to generate outsized value. Now, Hims and Duolingo have two slightly different risk-reward scenarios. Hims is greatly undervalued, trading at just over 5 times sales, while Duolingo is likely fairly valued at just over 18 times sales. What's happening is that the jury is still out on whether Hims has a moat or not, which explains much of the relatively compressed valuation. As I explained in my last write-up, I believe what Hims is doing is hard enough for Amazon and Walmart to have failed at the same task over the past 5 to 6 years, and that Hims is building a moat which is basically the same as Spotify's that you can see depicted on the graph now, plus a big component of at scale and personalized drug compounding, which just makes it much harder harder to disrupt potentially than Spotify. And we've seen how Spotify has done over the past few years, with the stock being up tremendously since I went all in. Both Hims and Duolingo have one characteristic in common, which Spotify has and Amazon and many others that have been great successes over the past 2 decades. They are becoming the top of the funnel for their respective industries by fundamentally resetting consumer expectations. This is a dynamic that we've seen play out time and time again over the past 2 decades. New top of the funnel companies start out as toys that no one really takes seriously, and then suddenly they rise to dominate industries. At the beginning, no one thought movies could debut on Netflix or that Spotify could become the lifeblood of music labels, but here we are. Both Hims and Duolingo are compounding tremendous customer goodwill by delivering much more value per dollar spent on behalf of customers than the rest of their respective industries do. Both are operating across a small number of verticals, but they are branching out quickly. Hims is launching new healthcare verticals at an accelerated pace, and Duolingo recently launched the math and music verticals. As these two companies continue to launch more verticals, I believe they will reset consumer expectations across the board, across their entire industries, and then magic will likely happen. The most impressive example of this sort of dynamic is Amazon. They started with books and now they sell everything. And that's because they've provided such a rapidly growing level of convenience, price competitiveness, and breadth of selection in terms of what they sell to customers that a growing volume of merchants simply have no option but to default to the platform. For instance, in case of success for Hims, a healthcare provider will likely have to operate through Hims in order to be competitive. In turn, teachers probably won't be needed once if agentic and physical AI models enable Duolingo to turn Tesla's humanoid robots or any other humanoid robot into physical teachers that don't have to eat, sleep, and can be paid a fraction of what teachers have to be paid at present. At a higher level, perhaps more philosophically, all the healthcare and education industries do is process information in order to figure out what action to take next, in order to obtain the best possible patient and student outcomes. And in many cases, because there are no truly customer-centric outlets, people in these industries don't really even care about patient or student outcomes. The price for education, for formal education in the States, for instance, and in other European countries is tremendously high for the value they give you. And then healthcare, well, it just sucks across the board. It makes sense that if you own the relationship with the end customers in these two industries and achieve critical mass, you ultimately end up capturing the data that these two industries feed off, because that's all these industries do, just process data and then figure out what to do next. With today's technology, capturing that data, which is what I think Hims is going to do for healthcare and Duolingo for education, then puts you in the position to process all of it and ultimately sell the intelligence back to the marketplace that the rest of the industry needs to make good decisions. So this is what I think is going to happen with Hims and Duolingo. And honestly, Duolingo doesn't really meet my characteristic of a world-class company that's undervalued, because at 18 times sales, well, you could say that the market is very much aware of the potential, but the potential is so vast that I think 18 times sales really isn't going to matter. And I think this is the first instance that you see me doing this, paying a more generous valuation for a company with extraordinary organizational properties, but I think it's going to work. It's going to be an interesting test anyway. And generally, these two investments are an additional test of the mental framework that I teach in my Tech Stock Goldmine course. The framework has so far led to my 20x plus AMD and Tesla picks over the past decade, and more recently my 11x plus Palantir and 5x plus Spotify picks over the past few years. It's really a shame because I was up 17x on Palantir and I was feeling so good, back down now to being 11x with the whole tariffs thing, but still I can't complain. What's interesting this time versus the two latter picks, Palantir and Spotify, is that Hims and Duolingo are smaller companies. It's therefore a test of how predictive the mental framework is in earlier stages where we can obtain much higher returns, although of course the risk is higher. So this is kind of the trade-off that I'm inspecting. Can this framework be used to buy smaller companies and make much more money than with somewhat bigger companies? Palantir and Spotify were already an intersection of venture capital and public markets investing, but Hims and Duolingo are a step further. While I conduct this test, which I believe is going to be tremendously successful, I believe that Hims and Duolingo are going to knock it out of the park. I recommend that you take my course if you want to get better at spotting winners early. It's taken me a decade of intense work to get good at spotting extraordinary companies early, and by no means do I suggest that you can do that quickly, but you can get a head start by taking my course. In under 2 hours, I teach you everything I know in an elegant and powerful mental model that over 450 students have happily integrated to date. Now, don't be misled by the duration of the course. It sounds like maybe there's not too much content in there because it's just 2 hours long, but it's so tremendously powerful. And you can look at the reviews of real customers. I've worked so hard to put a decade decade plus of experience into a product that you can consume in 2 hours. And fair enough, customers actually have to go through the course many times in order to truly integrate it. But it's such a powerful product, and I'm sure you're going to love it. I'm really, really happy to see more than 450 students to date going through it. It means the world to me. So anyways, guys, thank you very much for joining me. As always, if you enjoyed this update, could you please share this with one friend? These deep dives are for free, and the only way this grows is with your help. So thank you very much in advance. Take care, and until next time.